clicking us over.
Cool. Well done on starting a second book. Hey, it's so hard.
Oh my God, Pippa, I had no idea.
Right, man. Like seriously, I think I had a breakdown with my second one, like literally.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy, right? Pippa, so I think we are live. Let me just double check. Yeah, it says we are live streaming now. Yay! Hi, everybody. I'm Sara Devillo, your mighty mystery on-air host, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here tonight with Pip Drysdale, author of The Sunday Girl, who's joined us from Western Australia. Pippa, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Great to be here.
Yay, we're so excited to have you. So I'm just clicking over to all of your amazing press. I don't even know where to start. So book list calls The Sunday Girl an abrasive thriller that will leave readers with a bit of a burn. Canberra Weekly says, you know that things cannot turn out well, but you can't turn away or stop reading this gripping novel. Daily Telegraph says Sunday Girl is a gripping psychological thriller. The Herald Sun says the Girls Club of Psychological Thrillers has a worthy new member. New idea calls Sunday Girl an addictive debut psychological thriller, which explores the darkness of abusive relationships. I could go on and on. Pip Drysdale, you're amazing. Tell us about your book.
Well, it's called The Sunday Girl, and it's about a girl who decides to take revenge against her boyfriend, who she's been in a very toxic relationship with him, and she breaks up with him. Well, he breaks up with her and uploads a sex tape of her to the internet. So I know, right? It's a big no-no.
Big
it's a big no-no. Okay.
That's a no-no.
And he actually also tags her with her full name. So like anyone who was looking for her online, anyone professional could find her. Okay, so she decides to take revenge, and she uses the art of war as her as the way by which she can take revenge. Okay, so she starts this revenge strategy, but things do not go to plan. So the whole book is basically about what happens. She does the revenge in, like, I'd say the first like 3 to 4 chapters. Then things go very out of her control.
I'm already nervous. I'm sweating slightly. I'm already tense. I cannot wait to read this book. I'm so excited. Tell us about your path to publication. Were you hacking your way through a jungle? Were you cruising along on a superhighway? I mean, what was it like?
Okay, it's really hard to tell this though, because it's not simple, right? Because I was a creative of some description my whole life. So I have spent years and years sacrificing myself to the muse. Okay, so I need to start with that. It's not like, I'd like had a completely different career and then boom, decided to be a writer and boom, got published. Okay, so I'd spent my whole life committed to storytelling in one form or another, be it songs, be it acting, but they were stories, okay, that I was telling. So when it actually came to writing my first novel, that actually was quite quick. So I wrote it and I sent it out to a bunch of agents who, I mean, I got some quite nice no's. They weren't like the form letter no's. They were like reasonably friendly and supportive and encouraging, but they were still no's. And I kind of took on whatever they said. So whatever their reason for a no was, I'd think about it and go, well, do they have a point there? And if they did have a point, I would change it, right? And then eventually it got to the beginning of 2017, and I still didn't have an agent and I still didn't have a publisher. Not that I'd sent to any publishers, mind you. And I posted a photograph on Instagram, and a girl that I didn't know very well at all at the time, I do know her now, but at the time I barely knew her, saw it, and she was like, can I see the first chapter? So I sent it to her. And like, I didn't know that this was going to end in anything, okay? I just sent it to her because, as a writer, at some point you need someone to tell you that you're doing a good job. So I sent it to her. And then she sent it out. She said, can I send it on to my friend who happens to work at a publishing house? And I was like, yeah, sure. And she did. And then her friend sent it on to the MD. And I mean, there was a lot of work that went on after that. Like I had to do a major revision and stuff, but that was how I got published. So it was like all the stars just lined up for me one day out of an Instagram post, but they definitely had not lined up for a while before that.
So that just speaks to the amazingness of Instagram, and we're going to link to Pippa's Instagram in the comments below. Our producer on the Facebook side is doing that for us as we speak. So I think so much that you said there, Pippa, is amazing. So first of all, this really did align. But as you said, you had spent your entire career telling stories in various formats, both as a singer-songwriter and as an actress, having lived in London and toured all over Europe. You know,
New York as well. I was there for about 3 years as well.
in Australia.
No, New York.
Oh, New York, New York. Okay, yes, exactly. And so you had been telling stories through various media for a while, but then all of the stars aligned as they were meant to on this one, which is such a lovely, sort of heartwarming story that speaks to the fact that if you keep bravely putting yourself out there, good things will follow and things will line up and it will happen for you. So I think this will be so encouraging and inspiring for so many of us who are of our audience who are trying to get that book published or work in whatever creative pursuits they are. I love that.
I believe that the right thing happens at the right time. Like when I look back at myself 10 years ago, I don't know that I would have been as comfortable creating the kind of characters that I create now, because my characters are flawed and they do the wrong thing at the wrong time, and I'm kind of unapologetic about it, right? Whereas 10 years ago, I was still trying to be super people pleasy and I would have been worried about doing that. So I'm kind of glad I didn't get published then, because then that would have been how people would have known me, right?
Right.
So it's good in a roundabout way. It didn't feel good when like nothing was working, but like when it finally did, I'm glad that it didn't happen earlier.
Exactly. Like everything was meant to happen. And I always feel like whenever something happens, I always look back and think, oh, the things that preceded it lined up inexorably to provide me with the experience and the tools and the depth that I needed to get to this moment in a way that you can't see until you get there and look back.
It's like that Zen thing. It's like, that Zen proverb where I can't remember it exactly. I'll give it very shortly, but I'll give it in a very short format. It's very early. I'm drinking caffeine. Okay. My mouth will not work. I'm just warning you guys.
But I'm a yoga teacher. I'm here for the Zen. I mean, give it to us. I'm ready.
Okay. So, a guy, I think he buys a horse or something, and then his son goes out and rides the horse and falls off and breaks his leg. And everyone comes past and says, "Oh, that's terrible." And he says, "We'll see," right? And then a war breaks out and everyone gets sent to war except for his son. And everyone goes, "Well, that's great." And he says, "We'll see." And then because his son wasn't sent to war, I can't really remember the rest of the proverb, but you get the feeling. It's like you just don't know how things are going to work out or why it might be a good thing until a lot later down the road.
Exactly. It's so true. Actually, my first book opens with a scene of my ex-boyfriend dumping me. At the time, I thought this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. My heart is splattered all over the sidewalk. I could never be sadder. But hey, it gave me great material for this book.
Exactly. And now you can write a book.
And now I can write the book. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So Pippa, why this story? Tell us why the story, why now?
I don't know. I'm not one of these writers who necessarily knows what goes on in my own head. And I don't get my ideas from like one thing. It's like I get a series. I see being a writer or a creative as being almost a conduit for multiple inputs from lots of different things, right? And then you suddenly have this idea within you and you start writing it. And when I started writing The Sunday Girl, I didn't entirely know I had no idea what I was doing, but I didn't really know exactly where it was going to go. I kind of knew what I wanted the very end to be, but I had no idea about the rest of it, but I just started going and figuring it out as I went along. And, but it's not like I had the cerebral process where one day I was walking down the street and I saw something and I thought, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a book about so-and-so and it's going to go blah, blah, blah. That is not how it goes with me. There's like when you get a ball of wool and it's like really knotted up, or, okay, you know what it's like for me? When you have like 5 necklaces and you put them all in the same compartment and they get all tangled up together and then it takes so long to untangle them. That's my process.
Okay, I'm really glad to hear you say that. So first of all, that means you're a pantser, not a plotter.
Well, I try to be a plotter. Like I go in with some major ideas, like beginning, middle, end. Well, not for the first book, but for like the second and third that I've done, right? But the problem is that even though they are very strong in my mind when I start, they change. Like I'll get to sort of chapter 4 and a character will do something and I'll go, okay, wow, I was not expecting that for you. We need to do a rethink, right? So, but I do go in with an idea, like a plan. It's just that the plan doesn't stick. So what does that make me? This is the question.
So I think that makes you a writer of faith, right? Because you're willing to be in a partnership with these characters, seeing where they lead you on the page, it sounds like. Is that fair to say?
Actually, it's interesting you say that, because when people say, like, I often say to people when I'm in a very dark writing place, because let's be fair, it's not easy every day. You have days where it's just so hard, you feel like you're never going to do this, right?
Yes.
I say to them, it's like it really is an exercise in faith. It's like an exercise in just trusting that you will do it and your characters will show you. And if not, then freaking some dead authors up there will freaking tell you. It's like somehow this thing's getting written and you just have to have faith that in some way it will happen, right?
Pippa, how do you have faith? I mean, sometimes faith must wear thin. How do you refuel that faith? How do you keep going?
God, I have no idea, hey, because I have a lot of whiny days. Like anyone close to me would tell you, I love writing and I love it on a lot of days, but there are other days where I literally think it's the worst thing in the world and I cannot figure out why I'm doing this to myself, right? But here's the weird, and you would know it because you're
I don't know anyone like that. That's never happened to me.
Never happened to you, right? But it's, but yet we turn up on the page every day. That's what's so weird. Like people say, well, when did you want to be a writer? And I'm like, I don't know that I ever did. It's just that there's a compulsion to turn up and create, right? Like it's almost like you don't have a full choice in the matter. So, so yeah.
I love that. And I resonate with everything. And I think this is such a heart-filling conversation because it's giving all of us who may have those, all of us who have those days that where you're just struggling to keep going, to keep going.
Yeah, that's the only key. Like keep freaking going.
Keep freaking going. So are you one of those writers who sits down every day religiously and is like, I do not care how long I struggle and sit there and say nothing. I will sit there until it comes. Or do you take a few days off? I mean, what's your writing process look like?
Okay, so I wake up every morning, except for this morning because we're Zooming, but every other morning I wake up, I make coffee and I write. So my brain doesn't really work well for speaking early in the morning, but it works well for writing. Okay, so wake up, make a pot of coffee, sit in bed, and I write for about 2 hours, maybe 3, somewhere around there, depending on, and I mean, if it's a really bad day, it might be 1, but there's always writing that happens in the morning. And I tend to do new work in the morning. So if I'm doing a new scene or something, that will be when I do it. And then that is all I commit to. Once I've done that in the morning, I tend to have the story in my head, so I will go back to it, right? If I don't do that in the morning, I can like take weeks off. But if I but I've never actually done that, so I don't know if I could. Like every single morning I get up and do that, and then I usually end up back at the page later on in the day editing something or changing something, or I've had a thought, or and some days that'll mean that I sit at the computer for 14, 16 hours. Some days it'll be that I do the 3 hours in the morning or the 1 hour in the morning and I don't do any more. I'm not too constraining with that, because when I was first trying to write my second book, I tried that whole sit down, do 9 to 5 thing, and it killed me. And also the prose that came out of me was so miserable, because I think I was really miserable and I was sitting there and I can't force it. I can sit there and promise myself I will sit there every morning, right? But I can't force that I have an idea for a scene, because sometimes it takes your subconscious time to untangle those necklaces, so yeah.
Oh, Pippa, I love this. I just love hearing this. It's so relatable and it's so heart-filling, and it just is, it's like balm for my writer soul. I love hearing this. How do you know when you're done for the day? Or is it that I have done a certain amount of hours, I have finished that scene, or is it you just sort of know?
I don't know how I know. It's basically either I've thrown my toys out of the cart and then I know I'm gonna walk away, or I'm gonna like start ripping things apart. Like I'm like, don't sit there any longer because you're gonna start erasing things. Or it's like I'm exhausted. If it's a really long, like I had a day the other day where I did a major rework of about 3 scenes on the book that I'm working on now. And by the end of it, I was so tired that like I knew I'd done a lot, but I was physically exhausted. And at that
Mhm.
point, you have to walk away because there's no thoughts in your head. It's almost like
Mm.
this bzzz going on in your brain because you've used all your thoughts,
Yes.
it's an indicator.
Yeah, it's so interesting how you can feel exhausted in a physical way after that. I actually recently read that 25% of your caloric intake, like the food that you eat, the calories that you eat, is used just for mental functioning, like just for getting you through the day. 25%. I mean, that's kind of a lot. So I'm thinking if you're really working hard on that scene, it's going to be maybe more.
I was so relieved when I read that actually, because I was like, why am I eating so much freaking sugar? Because I know sugar's bad for me. And I was like, why am I so hungry? And then I read that and I felt a lot better about life.
Yeah, you're like, because I'm feeding my brain. That's why.
Brain.
I need it. Exactly. Exactly. Pip, I want to go back to something that you said earlier when you were saying that when you were talking about your publication process, your path to publication, and you were saying that some of the feedback that you were getting from agents, you would sit with and you would say, does this resonate or not? And then you would either change your work or you would stay the course. And I think that's something that a lot of writers struggle with is knowing when to take feedback versus diluting your truth versus stubbornly sticking to your original vision, not being flexible enough to make it better, not having faith in yourself. It's so tangled. How do you navigate that? How do you know when it's right to change it? How do you trust someone else and trust yourself?
With me, it's very much a gut thing. Like I can kind of feel when something feels like I'm doing, I don't know, it's such a difficult thing to articulate. I
Mm.
always, okay, when I'm talking about a story, usually I'll write it wrong a lot at the beginning. And then it's a case of almost hacking away at it, trying to reveal what the story's supposed to be. But when it is the story, right, and it does make sense and it feels right. Like
Mm.
I find that I try to go more with my gut than my head on that, because also when readers are reading my work, they're responding on a visceral, guttural level, right?
Mm.
I'm not looking for someone to pat me on the head and tell me how clever I am, right? I'm looking for someone to feel stuff when they read it. So when I'm doing it, I do the thing that feels interesting or exciting, or like I'm pushing the envelope slightly in whatever way, or um, I don't, it's such a difficult thing. And I try to do that. Look, it's not foolproof though. I struggle so much with not knowing if I know what the hell's going on or if I know what I'm doing, but I try to go with my gut.
Mm. I love that. And what you said about readers wanting to connect with something in that authentic, visceral, guttural way is so true, because whether it's fiction or nonfiction, people can feel when something is true. People can feel that truth. And when it comes from a place of authenticity and it comes from a place of truth, and it comes when the feelings are sort of very visceral and true, people can really feel that even through the page, even when it's fiction.
Yes, totally. And I mean, I find that a struggle as well, because like at the moment, because I have a publisher, right? You're on a deadline. And so you need to show them what you've done so then they can do the restructure. And so you're like, well, I don't want to spend hours and hours creating that visceral reaction in these scenes just to cut them out. But also, how they gonna, it's like a catch-22, man.
Yeah, it really is. That's so true.
Yeah,
It's
so
so
hard.
true.
You know that
Mm.
they're gonna end, like a lot of it's gonna end up cut out anyway. So but you have to do it. Like I don't know. I always find though early drafts are really interesting because you get to know the characters anyway. So then when you get to the later drafts, you kind of know who they are. So even though you might be changing parts of the story, you know what they would do. Whereas if you were to do it earlier on, you might not understand them well enough to just like immediately know how they would deal with it, you know?
Mm, exactly. So then I guess that goes back to what you were saying earlier, where trusting the story, trusting the characters to lead you on the page with where you need to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm, I love that. I love that. So what do you hope that people walk away from the story feeling? What do you want people to walk away with?
Mm, there's so many things, but I'd say the main one that I would, if I could pick one, right? To start with, I'd like them to have a little bit more empathy for the Taylors of the world. Okay, because
Mhm.
Taylor is in a toxic, abusive relationship, and she, you know, it's very easy when you're looking at that sort of thing on the outside to just say, just leave. But, you know, on a biochemical level, when a woman is in that, she's actually trauma bonded to the guy doing it. And, you know, women, when I was reading about this, okay, women, when we are in scary situations, we don't just pump out adrenaline, we pump out oxytocin as well. And we do this thing called tend and befriend, which means that we actually are we're being kind of glued to the person doing it to us. So it's harder to leave than it might look like it should be on the outside, right? So I've tried to create that experience for the reader with Taylor so that it will create more empathy for women like that, because I just think that if you don't have empathy, there's no way they're getting out. They need help, right? And the other thing is, we live in a society where everyone kind of puts their best foot forward, and you see the best parts of people's lives on social media, and it creates this really fake interaction between people. So I wanted to write something that where the character was kind of flawed, and she did the wrong thing at the wrong time. She tried her best and stuff, and there were things that she could be really ashamed of in there, because then it gives readers the opportunity to talk about more real things that they might be ashamed of, you know, as opposed to feeling like you have to put on this facade. So
I love that. I love that. What a heartfelt, I mean, just fully heartfelt book. And again, addressing such an important issue of abusive relationships, which is, you know, such a prevalent problem for, you know, so many people. And I think it's wonderful to bring that out into the light and to start a conversation around it.
Well, that's exactly it. I really just wanted to start a conversation, because you can, like, people have these attitudes, which I think it would be really great if they could change it. But I also wanted to do it in a way that was fun and engaging and interesting for the reader. I didn't want to create this work that was so heavy that no one wanted to get through it. You know, I wanted to create a story that people would love reading and would be super, like, empowering and stuff, but that would also, so, like, there's so many levels, but, you know, like, when you're writing a book, there are so many levels going on. It's so yeah, hopefully I manage. We will see.
I'm so excited to read this book. I'm so excited. What's some of the worst writing advice that you got, and what's some of the best writing advice that you've gotten?
God, I don't know. Hey, I think if I did get bad advice, it would be some variation of conform. Okay. That would be the worst writing advice anyone could give you. Like, you want to be somewhat within genre conventions, but, you know, and somewhat within what other people are doing. But I remember reading this quote a long time ago when I was still a musician, and it was, if you can be good or different, be different. Right. So I think that is something I would say, if I was giving anyone advice, I'd be like, don't be frightened to do something slightly different. You know, like, my books kind of merge genres slightly, like, it's slightly women's fiction, a lot thriller. Like, you know, there is a definite overlap. And I think people need to feel like they can do that. You don't have to play exactly by the rules, you know? You don't want to totally break all of them, because no one's going to like it, but you can break them a little bit.
I love that. I love that. And so that's the best advice that you've gotten, and what you would pass on then.
The worst would be like, oh, you can't do that because it has to be like this. You know, or conform, or you can't do that because your character has to be 100% likable. That's my worst part, because it's so boring. I'm like, I don't want to write a perfect woman, you know, because we're not perfect, unless, like, I mean, we might pretend to be, but no one's perfect, right?
Right, and it's so exhausting. One of the things that I really appreciate right now is seeing more flawed or realistic or layered, complex, complicated women coming out on the page and on the screen. And I'm so glad to be seeing that those books and those films and those shows getting the support of people watching and talking about them, because that's what we need. I mean, men have never really been constrained to being perfect on screen. We've had complicated men a long time.
And I love complicated women, and you know, I love women who make mistakes, because we all make bloody mistakes, you know. And also the other thing, like my pet peeve is when I read a book and it's written about a boy or a man, and he's allowed to do shit that if a woman did, she would be crucified by the reader. And I don't like that. I just feel like, we're also allowed to make mistakes. We're also allowed to be flawed. I mean, we try our best. They try their best. I feel like it would be great if we could just create a bit more understanding and empathy.
I love that. Oh my God, Pippa, I love this conversation. This is so heartening. So what is your secret wish for what will happen to your book? Tell us your writerly dream.
Yes, I would, apart from clearly number one on Netflix and huge blockbuster movie, it would definitely, I would like it to be a word of mouth success. So the kind of book where someone loves it and then tells their friend about it, or their mother, or their book club about it. I want it to be the kind of book that women tell each other about and then talk about afterwards.
I absolutely love that. And when it is a Netflix #1 series or on the big screen, who will be starring in this? Who do you see?
Well, ideally it would be Margot Robbie, because I love her. She's so brilliant. And Chris Hemsworth, I feel like he could definitely go either way with like the good guy, bad guy thing. So I feel like he would work.
Exactly. And she's so gifted. She's so amazing. I loved her in Bombshell. She was a complicated character there. And simultaneously, I think producing or maybe directing a film at the same time. I mean, the woman's talent has no end.
Amazing. Yeah. And she's so versatile as well. Like you could really see that she could go either way, like be totally the good girl or totally have that little spark of fire inside her. So I feel like she'd be perfect, but like literally she's probably too busy. So.
I think she's never too busy for a fabulous, complicated woman role. So Margot, if you're out there, Pippa is ready for you to star in the Sunday Girl. Pippa, we have just a few minutes left, so let's head into the lightning round.
Okay.
So you've already told us that you're a morning writer for sure, sometimes also an afternoon writer. Do you prefer chocolate or vanilla?
I'm vanilla.
Really? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I love vanilla milkshakes. They're my fave. I don't know why.
They are delicious. I mean, any milkshake, but oh, it's just so delicious. What's your weirdest writing ritual? Tell us your weird.
I don't know if it's weird, but I really get into the heads of my characters. So I'll spray myself with a perfume that I've decided is their perfume, just so that I can get back into character. And I will watch whatever shows I think they watch and read whatever books I think they read. And I'm really trying to get into their mind that way. So it's kind of method, but for writing.
So were you wearing Angus's cologne when you were writing this? And
no,
what is
I was wearing Taylor's perfume, which was Bottega Veneta, the not one.
Okay, I can see it in my eye with it. Yes, I can see the
leather, it's got a leather knot on it, so that was her perfume.
That was her perfume. Okay. Are you a mountain girl or a beach girl? Where would you read if you could read anywhere?
Both, but probably beach with an umbrella. So just to be difficult.
Well, I mean, you have the world's best beaches in Australia. Fun fact, I lived in Australia. I lived in Brisbane and I went to the University of Queensland, UQ.
Cool.
So I love Australia. I miss it daily. And I think Australia has the most beautiful beaches in the world and the best people.
Definitely the best people.
Yeah, obviously. Okay, perfect. Do you prefer dogs or cats?
Kitties.
Do you have a cat?
No, I want one, but I'm so commitment phobic and I move so much. I'm like, if I get a kitty, what am I going to do when I want to move? I feel like I need to settle and then I can get a cat.
You will pack your cat in a carrier and take her with you.
Yeah, maybe that's the key because I am commitment phobic. I'm not going to lie to you. But I would love a kitty.
Fair enough. I was nervous before we adopted our dog, and I am also a commitment phobe, and I was like, but maybe it's too much pressure. But I will say it's not. It's the perfect amount because it's not a kid, so you don't have to worry about going out to dinner or going out for a couple hours. It is.
Actually, cats are quite low maintenance.
And a cat is even lower maintenance than a dog.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's time, Pippa.
I feel like it might be time. I would so love a cat. God, I'd love kitties. Anyway.
So your pub day toast, is it champagne or vodka to
I am
toast
actually
your pub day?
sober, so mine is coffee. So like I stopped drinking 4.5 years ago. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, a coffee toast sounds even better. All right. Would you rather go camping with Bram Stoker or Anne Rice?
Bram,
Would you rather go to sleepaway camp with Mary Shelley or Shirley Jackson?
Mary Shelley,
What's one book that changed your life?
Lolita. That's what
Mm.
made me want to write.
Oh, interesting. Okay, wow. I've never heard that answer before. What are you reading now?
I'm halfway through about 7 books. Like I literally have half the library in my house. Okay. But I'm really struggling with this whole pandemic thing to focus. So I'm writing my own book and then I'm really struggling to get through everyone else's books. So I have so many on the go. I have The Bell Jar, which I'm halfway through. I have Wuthering Heights, which is I'm 3/4 of the way through, which I think I read at school, but I haven't read as like a grown up. I have You Are Not Alone, which I'm halfway through. I have about 5 things on my actually no, I'm lying to you. I have about 15 things in my to be read pile, but including the one from the other lady, the American Housewife, that's on my to be read pile. So
Yay, Blaze Love. Oh, perfect. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, and I just want to say, I also have been struggling with concentration during the pandemic. It's very hard when there's a global pandemic and the current levels of anxiety out
yeah,
there and not knowing what's going to happen and reading all of the daily statistics. It's really
it's so
hard. I just want to,
frustrating. And I find also it's like not being able to plan anything. Like, to be honest, I'm not a huge planner, but I do kind of like to know that there's an end date and that after I finish this book, I'll go do so and so. Whereas now I don't know that. I could just be stuck here in this living room for the rest of days. We do not
yeah,
know. Like,
exactly.
it's
It's the not
stressful.
knowing that's so
Yeah.
anxiety inducing and just sort of being in this holding pattern. If we knew for sure that the day, even if it was in September or December, if we knew when that
Yeah.
day was, we could work
D-Day.
backward from there and sort of plan accordingly. But it's the
Yeah.
not knowing
Yeah.
that's really
It's
scary.
like
And
a long expanse. And so, yeah, so I have so many books half read and they're all great. Like they're amazing.
yeah,
And I'm sure if I was in a normal brain space, I would have finished them. It's just, yeah.
exactly. For the first couple of weeks, I couldn't read, I couldn't write, I couldn't do anything other than sort of like pace around restlessly and look out the window and pet my dog.
Yeah.
That was really it.
Oh, good for you.
But now I've started reading, and but I'm reading. I find that again, my attention span is still challenged. So what's working really well for me is mystery and thrillers, which is great because that's my favorite genre anyway. But again, when concentration is challenged, I find that it's really got to suck me in, and so that's what I'm
Yeah,
reading.
otherwise it's almost impossible. It's also been really hard writing in this. Like I've got a deadline, so I've had to do it, but it's just been a real struggle. So I'm hoping that I've like somehow woven some magic. We will see. I'm sure my editor will tell me, but it's hard, you know.
It's so hard. It's so hard, and I think it's important to honor that because again, I think when you're looking at social media and everyone's putting up this perfect front, it's easy to think that everyone else is just totally fine or everyone else is writing
I'm
like
learning
the wind. What's that?
like I'm learning Greek. I'm learning to bake like whatever, and I'm sitting here drinking coffee, trying not to like just trying to write one sentence.
Yeah, exactly. I think Gwyneth Paltrow was like, if you're not learning a language or writing a book, like I don't know what what your problem is, or your, or she didn't say I don't know what your problem is. She said you should be
You're
making most of it. Yeah, you're a loser.
like,
Um,
but I wrote about that, and it was like I can't remember the exact. Okay, it was on Instagram somewhere, but I can give you the gist. And it was the aim of quarantine is not to come out fluent in Greek and a great cook. It is to come out alive. And I thought this I can relate to. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Matt Haig. I don't know, but I can't remember. But I thought, yes, this is definitely what I needed to read.
yeah,
You come out alive,
exactly.
you're doing it right. Well done.
Exactly. Another one I read, and I don't, and it didn't have attribution because I think it had gotten reposted so much because everyone resonated
Yeah.
with it, was you're not working from home. You're sheltering in place and trying to get some work done. And I
Yes,
thought, oh, I
exactly.
feel so seen. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that once we sort of shift to looking at it like that way, you don't feel quite so bad about the fact that some days you just are not really on top of it, man.
Exactly. And I've had a lot of those days. I just want to be really honest.
Yeah, me too. So totally cool.
Yay. Pippa, I have so enjoyed this time with you. You are such a fully present, warm, wonderful, authentic, honest, heart open, heart full human being. I just want to say, what is one thing that you wish I had asked,
Oh,
or one thing
okay.
you want to share?
Ironically, I'm a really private person, so I don't actually like talking about myself. So I'm glad you didn't ask any more.
Fair enough.
And
Fair enough. At the end of the interview, I find out that there is no Pippa. It's all a pseudonym. It's just
yeah,
she's
exactly.
that private.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this has been, again, such a wonderful, heart-filling, just lovely, lovely chat. And I'm so excited to read your book. Congratulations on your publication day. I'm so happy to hear that it's resonating so much with our viewers and and to be able to spread the word to our many other viewers. And congratulations on all this incredible press. And I cannot wait to see you on the bestseller list and on Netflix or the big screen, and Margot Robbie leading the cast. Pippa, I think this is incredible, and I'm so happy for you, and I can't wait to hear more about book 2 and have you back to chat about that.
Great. Thank you so much, Hey. It's been really fun.
Oh, it's been lovely having you. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. All the links are below. Support indie bookstores. We will be linking to Pippa's book, bookshop.org, so you can support indies and get this fabulous book. Follow her on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll link to her website as well. And we can't wait to see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us.